All right, everybody, I show that it's 5 o'clock. Today is the 5 o'clock webinar, the Tropical Storm Beryl briefing for South Central Texas from the Austin San Antonio National Weather Service office. I am Paul Ura. I am the warning coordination meteorologist here, and I will be doing your Tropical Storm Beryl briefing. So not a ton has changed over the past 12 hours or so. Tropical Storm Beryl still has maximum winds of 65 miles an hour, still continuing to move northwest and eventually kind of more of a northerly direction, probably in the western Gulf of Mexico. It is still forecast to strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane, possibly just prior to landfall late tonight. A tropical storm warning is still in effect for Lavaca, DeWitt, and Fayette counties. And the heavy rain threat technically is still there across that same region, except that we have kind of lowered the rainfall chances and the rainfall totals even more. We've kind of narrowed it down to at least maybe even 2 to 5 inches with some higher totals possible. We still have the flood watch in effect for that region, but as you can imagine, as we're getting closer and closer, and it looks like we're maybe not going to be getting that much rainfall as far as that we did maybe 12 or 24 hours ago, the overall threat for widespread flooding is kind of down. We're still going to kind of leave the forecast in there for getting some wind gusts in excess of tropical storm force, possibly in excess of 50 miles per hour. But as we kind of see with the track, that even that is becoming kind of less likely. There is going to be still that isolated tornado threat, and we'll talk about that as well. Overall, I've kind of lowered some of these threats for the far east and southeast areas of South Central Texas, including the wind and flooding rain threat. I've kind of brought those down, and I've kind of kept the river flooding and the tornado threat kind of around the same, very, very small or limited at that point. Here's the latest plot and forecast from the Hurricane Center. This was the 4 p.m. advisory. We can see that it is still winds of 65 miles an hour. It is moving north-northwest at about 12 miles per hour. So it is supposed to be making landfall later tonight, and then very quickly moving up into northeast Texas by the pre-dawn hours of Tuesday morning. So our main impact day is still going to be Monday, and primarily the first part of Monday. I think honestly by Monday afternoon, it's going to be far enough north out of our region and east of our region that will have very limited impacts. We are still going to be talking about the high surf conditions and the dangerous rip currents along the Texas coast and beaches for the next several days, including tomorrow. Still nothing on the horizon after Beryl comes through. The tropics across the entire Atlantic basin remains rather quiet, and we just don't expect much in the way of tropical activity over the next week. So that's good. Here is the latest satellite loop that we have of Beryl kind of moving through the far western Gulf of Mexico. We actually did have some bands of showers and thunderstorms come through portions of the coastal plains, the Texas coast, and actually started to push all the way basically to the I-35 corridor before they kind of gusted out and really didn't have much from there. But a couple of thunderstorms early this afternoon were technically, yes, caused from the banding kind of around Beryl. There is still a lot of dry air around the system, so that's still going to keep it fairly small and really kind of limit, I think, how much of extra strength it can kind of garner up overnight. I want to do a capture of the Brownsville radar just because if you are using the Brownsville radar on different weather apps, or if you look at the mosaic on some of the weather apps with the weather radar, you can actually see the circulation off the South Texas coast. The one thing I wanted to point out here is that while you can kind of see the circulation, you can see the broad rotation of counterclockwise flow, you can see that there isn't a well-defined eye. There's no well-defined eye wall, and so it is still disorganized at this point. But again, there's still several hours of daylight. There's still multiple hours before possible landfall later tonight, so it can still strengthen. And a lot of the small-scale sort of weather models that the Hurricane Center uses still has it getting up into hurricane strength. So with the path that we're expecting, we still have Fayette County, Lavaca County, and DeWitt County under tropical storm warnings. There are hurricane warnings along the Texas coast and further east, but primarily for us, again, the main issue with this is that we could get some wind gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour across those far eastern counties, especially if the track just comes a little bit further to the west. But we honestly don't think that's going to happen. But of course, we've been in weather long enough. We know that anything is plausible and possible, and we've kind of seen very quick strengthening before in this section of the Gulf of Mexico. So we're a little bit cautious right now. We're going to keep the tropical storm warnings up for our far eastern counties. The strongest winds could arrive by early tomorrow morning, but rather decrease very quickly. And by late Monday afternoon, we don't think we will be having any sort of wind issues out there. They did increase the surge numbers for the Middle Texas coast, this area in orange, right about here, upwards of 4 to 7 feet now. So that's a change. And you can see the numbers of how much storm surge are expected elsewhere along the Texas coast. The rainfall totals have decreased as well in this model run. And so the Weather Prediction Center have, you can kind of see their output. You can kind of follow the path of where Beryl is supposed to go. These numbers are down from earlier today. And so we think this is probably the last fluctuation that we'll kind of see in the forecast of rainfall totals, just because this could be making landfall already by later tonight. But western areas missing out. East and along the path is where the majority of the rainfall will likely fall. This is the updated graphic that we're using for our region. And you can see we kind of penciled in some still 1/100 of an inch to about 1/10 of an inch across maybe portions of I-35 down to San Antonio. There could be some higher pockets of rainfall in there, higher amounts of rainfall, just because these tropical downpours, if something does come this far inland, maybe we'll get a quick 1/2 inch or inch of rain somewhere further inland. But again, the main impact will be out to our far eastern counties, where we could get that 2 to 5 inches of rain that fall. And again, most of that is probably going to be on Monday. These are the counties that are under the flood watch. So for us, we're teetering right on the edge here of where most of the rainfall will occur now. And so areas to the east, if you have any travel planned for tomorrow to go to Houston, you're going to be driving right into a lot of probably heavy rain as Beryl kind of makes its way up into that region along the 45 corridor, all the way up into east and northeast Texas. But flooding is becoming less likely for our region of south central Texas. Still, that tornado threat is in existence, especially in the late night hours tonight into the early morning hours tomorrow. Some of those rain bands coming in from Beryl as it's making landfall could spawn a couple of very weak tornadoes. That's very typical on the front right quadrant of landfall of a tropical system. Again, we're kind of right on the edge there, but it wouldn't be surprising to see some showers and thunderstorms that maybe have at least some rotation in them. We actually saw one today already with some sort of weak rotation, but we could see more of those tomorrow. And so finally, the key takeaways, again, our confidence is getting pretty high now of where it's making landfall, but still a lesser confidence of how strong Beryl will actually be before landfall. So with that knowing, still middle Texas coast, still late tonight, probably somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m. is probably when landfall is going to occur. That does put the biggest impacts and threats across our far eastern areas. Elsewhere along Interstate 35, I think we're going to miss out on most of everything: the wind, the rain, any sort of real big impacts or threats. And even for our far eastern areas, the impacts will still likely be ending by probably Monday afternoon, as all of the threats kind of shift off into northeast Texas and then even further northeast from there. So that is the last of the briefing for today. We still have we have several more scheduled briefings. Tomorrow morning's actually may be the last one that we'll really honestly have to do at 11 o'clock. A couple of questions came across, so let me just kind of look for this real quick. By the way, I didn't mention this on your sort of webinar sort of readout there. You have a questions feature. Type those in, and I'm getting them here. So let me go through some of these real quick. Let's see. Yeah, large FFA convention in downtown Houston all week. Many of the schools were supposed to travel tomorrow morning. Approximately what time will I-10 heading east be clear for major weather? That one you may have to kind of wait honestly before tomorrow morning. I know the morning hours are still going to be, you're going to be dealing with any sort of remnants of Beryl moving through. I would assume as of right now by afternoon there'd be improvement, but that's something that you'll probably honestly have to wait until tomorrow morning to see. First of all, did Beryl strengthen overnight or did it stay weak? And what does the rain pattern sort of look like? But until those tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings are lifted, especially in the Houston area, I don't know if I'd be doing too much traveling headed that general direction. These are the times to err on the side of caution and not be driving into a hurricane or hurricane type conditions like that. Is landfall looking like Port O'Connor, Matagorda Bay area? Yeah, technically, if you draw the line, and I know we're not supposed to pay attention to the actual track line because there's always wiggle room and all of that, and the center of the storm is so broad. But yeah, it looks like around Matagorda Bay, just north of Matagorda Bay, is typically where they have it, maybe probably crossing the Texas coast, somewhere in that general vicinity. Any specific region or city prediction for landfall? I just kind of explained that. It's kind of just north of Matagorda Bay. There's a town called Matagorda. But again, if I don't know how they're going to do an actual point, because if it doesn't have an eye, if it's a very broad circulation, it's going to be that general middle part of the Texas coast. Matagorda Bay, maybe a little bit north of that is where they think that is going to be. What time frame do we expect rain to begin in San Antonio? As of right now, I don't have a window of when rain will begin in San Antonio because I don't think San Antonio will get any rain, if anything, from this. So I guess I can't rule out it's plausible that we may have some sort of rain band rotate all the way around and we could get just literally a pop-up shower or thunderstorm like we got yesterday. But as far as any sort of organized rain shield coming into San Antonio, there is not going to be one. So in that case, I have no timing for when San Antonio is going to get any rain. Any other questions? Like I said, we'll probably do one more additional webinar at least tomorrow morning. To be honest, it's probably going to be the wrap-up webinar because I'm hopefully the system is already kind of almost literally getting out of our region and it's made landfall and is already kind of headed northeast. But we'll make that decision tomorrow. But otherwise, again, I think we're breathing a little bit better. It looks like most of the impact will be more east of our region, but we'll wait to see. We'll hope that it doesn't get too strong overnight, and hopefully we'll wake up tomorrow morning with no major impacts along the Texas coast. But we will see tomorrow. So with that, we will end it. Immediate conditions or changes would be pushed via Slack, correct? Yeah, well, we'll try to keep everybody updated through our Slack channel. If you're on our Slack channel on NWS chat, and any sort of major changes, yeah, we'll be sending out some additional situation report type emails, that kind of thing to our partners. But as of right now, the confidence is getting pretty high that I think hopefully most of our area will kind of be okay with all this. Okay, so with that, I will end the webinar. And again, we will see everybody tomorrow morning at about 11 a.m. for an additional briefing. Thank you guys and take care.